Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner. I'm a consultant, critic, and programmer in Toronto, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Kourtney Roy, a photographer and filmmaker whose first feature, Kryptic, stars Chloe Puri as a woman pulled into a waking nightmare of dislocation, alienation, and transformation when she sees something strange in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. It's more mood piece than monster movie, anchored by Puri's compelling performance, and it's on digital and on demand right now in the US and Canada. It's also playing at the Carlton Cinemas in Toronto right now through at least this Thursday, May 29th, so if you're curious to see it in the theater, go as soon as you can. Kourtney chose another first feature, Neill Blomkamp's District 9, starring Sharlto Copley as a spineless South African bureaucrat who becomes an extremely unlikely sympathizer to an uprising of aliens who've been living in a camp outside Johannesburg after arriving there a quarter century earlier. The film mixed real-world allegory and social commentary with ultra-violent sci-fi action, mostly because Blomkamp pivoted to this project after developing an adaptation of Halo with Peter Jackson. District 9 was a massive hit in 2009, going on to score Oscar nominations for Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Film Editing, and Best Visual Effects. And I think it's fair to say that Blomkamp has yet to equal it. Certainly, it hit Kourtney like a thunderbolt. This is Someone Else's Movie.
It's a film that, I've always really loved. I just think it's just a great story. It's the main character is like an anti-hero. He's a douchebag, but you love him, which I always loved, rooting for a bit of the underdog. And he's not the underdog like in the sense that he's badass or rebellious. He's somebody that you probably wouldn't very much like in real life, And so I felt that was just always fascinating me. And I found that this is a film that every time I watch it, I always ask more questions than it answers them. And so that open-endedness in my mind, for days I would always think about it afterwards. We can go on forever, like why I chose this, but I love sci-fis. I feel like actually I kind of discovered after I filmed Kryptic, after we did Kryptic and we were editing, I was like, this has a lot of the elements of District 9, which I will explain the similarities. It's kind of like a weird, it's almost like, and I was like, oh wow, inadvertently influenced by District 9, though like people would never ever make that link whatsoever.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's, when I saw Kryptic, it's like, it didn't occur to me at all, exactly. But then when you pick the film, it's like, oh, I see. I can sort of see that.
You are influenced by the things that have touched you and that you've appreciated, right? And without even thinking about it, there's more direct influences of that you can. Not direct, more obvious links. Let's say to Kryptic. The Red Hoodie for me is Don't Look Now, which people now they say Red Riding Hood, but for me, I love Don't Look Now, and I love that mysterious red hooded figure. I wanted that. It's a kind of a pretty direct, homage, a pastiche of that, right? So.
Yeah, it's funny. We just did an episode on Don't Look Now. It just came out like a couple of weeks ago.
That would have been my other film too, for sure. But I District 9. I just thought I just really like that film. It's just so fun. I just wanted to talk about it. Why not talk about something I like talking about?
Oh yeah. But there is something in the two films that like an understanding that evolution and transformation is messy and unpleasant, and our bodies betray us and things happen that we don't want. Our minds betray us. But the difference, I think that, yeah, as you said, Vickers is such a douche that you kind of enjoy watching him be dragged reluctantly through every single step. And while I do kind of think Sharlto Copley has one gear, which is frantic, pop-eyed mania, it's perfect for this film. Like, this was a great way to introduce that actor to the world.
Yeah, it's just because, it's such a unique character. And I quite like him. I think he's a great actor. I really like his work. But yeah, maybe I'm not an expert or anything, but this Vickers is, he's not, but he's pathetic and he's a douchebag, but he's not mean. He's selfish and egotistical, and he's not aware. He's the opposite of not woke. He's not woke, but not because he's malicious or mean, but just because he's just ignorant, and he's selfish, basically. So that's maybe makes him less, you still want to root for him because it's almost like, he can't help himself from being this way.
Yeah, he's a weasel.
He's kind of the weasel, but he loves his wife. He loves his little sweetie wife, and that's a redeeming quality. He just wants to go home and be with his wife, and he wants to please his boss, his brother-in-law. He's a pleaser. He's an ass licker. He wants to climb up the ladder. And I mean, maybe we can all recognize that in ourselves as well, too. Those Sometimes, when we see traits in other people we don't like, they're usually because they're traits in ourselves that we hate, that we're afraid of letting being shown. So anyway.
I've been trying to figure out, is there anybody at this point who doesn't know? But I guess we're talking about a film that was released more than 15 years ago, which melts my brain.
2009, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And was at the time hailed as a metaphor for apartheid era South Africa. The idea that
Of course,
all of the stuff was so rich and textured. Although, like, I don't know. It's always bugged me that Blomkamp didn't really think the metaphor through, because where are the black characters? Like, are we supposed to believe that South Africa never had black people? Like, there was no, like, the previous history, because if the newcomers only arrived, if the prawns only arrived 15 years earlier, what was happening before? So the idea is that this is, apartheid, but with aliens. But does that mean, like, where are we in history? That's my problem. I brought it into the theater with me. It's like, wait a minute, what is the history you're telling here? What is the alternate reality? What was South Africa before? And
it
hangs there, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I didn't ask that question.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
Like, I'm a much more complex person than me.
I'm just older. I just remembered all the broadcasts from the 80s about it.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, because apartheid ended in the early 90s?
Formally, yeah, I think 93.
Formally. Obviously, like, not racism was over or anything. Yeah. So yeah, I was very young. I was only 10 years old, so I was definitely not aware of that whole, vast, like, infectious problem that was, like, basically on the face of South Africa for a long time. So yes, I don't think, I did not bring those type of questions that you brought, for sure. No.
Yeah, I admit it got in my way a bit, but the other thing that did work is the kind of quiet acknowledgement, which makes much more of an impact now on revisiting, that white people will always find a way to be the worst. Like that is as close to a racial statement as this film has. But the idea that the prawns, and we never find out what they really are, what their names are, what their race is called, but like, they're defined to us exclusively through the lens of Vicus, who is, like, I don't think he's actively racist, but yeah, what you said, he goes along to get things done.
Of his culture and his time, which doesn't excuse, but it does kind of create a little bit of room for understanding.
Yeah, and he has the arc of someone who, I mean,
he pays for it. He becomes, as he becomes one of them, and he living his life as, like, this kind of ultimate, like, take a white guy and turn him into, like, something he wished he wasn't, and then he's going to have a lot more compassion. It's a big learning curve.
Yeah, it's the classic see how you like it arc of heroism, but it's basically Spartacus, right? Like, he learns to, or rather, the first two acts suggest that he will end up leading a revolution, but really he just doesn't, which I loved. The fact that right, like, he's still kind of a pathetic little worm.
Oh, he still is shit almost right to the end. Even, like, though he redeems himself, saves Christopher Johnson, saves his son.
Mm-hmm.
He has a moment of conscience, does it? But in the end, he's actually he's not trying to get freedom for the prawns. He just wants to become back to being human and see his wife again. That's like, it's still not a revolution. Even in the end, he's still making these little flowers out of tin for his wife and leaving him because he just wants to go home.
Yeah, it's tragic in a way, but it's tragic in an almost comical way, because he engineers nothing. Right, like, he buys time for people, I think, is the best thing that his character accomplishes over the course of the movie. And I love the idea that you're watching someone who is not a hero. Not only does he not see himself as a hero, but he doesn't get the big heroic arc that everyone expects him to. And that's, like, I don't know if Blomkamp did that intentionally, or if he just, because the project was this thing that was created when his Halo movie fell apart, and he used the tech that he'd been developing with Peter Jackson's Weta team, and they figured out a way to make another movie that was like its own IP and all of that, but they still have all the weaponry from Halo, so there have to be big action sequences and big armor moments.
Wow, that's an interesting sort of, like, what's the word? Context. Like, okay, we have a bunch of weapons, a bunch of technology we develop. How do we make a film, like, with all this stuff we have? That's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. It's super fascinating.
Yeah, it was a fascinating story, because the news of the Halo movie was dominating. Yeah.
That whatever DNA biological weaponry was, I thought incredibly interesting. All, was really, really an interesting component of the story that I loved to think about and dive into, as it went along. So
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is that it becomes messier than it would have been in Halo. I mean, Halo would have just been, laser blasts and explosions and big mech suits. But I think making it genuinely alien and having the concept of an infection going along and having Copley slowly covered in prosthetics and ultimately be completely digital, it's a really fascinating place to put an actor, especially one that the audience doesn't know, and heap on the goo and the vomiting and the eyeball stuff and the fingernails. It is designed to be sympathetic and repulsive at the same time, right? You have to care about this guy, even though he's not a great person, because he's going through all this. Jeff Goldblum in The Fly just fell in love, and it's tragic, and it's like he's a beautiful specimen of a human being, and watching him become a monster is tragic and sad. And this is just like, oh, I
right.
feel that this guy is,
Yeah.
yeah, here, but you feel his pain and the anguish of whatever's going on, and his panic, because of course the second this happens, he's deemed a monster and chased by his own people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he deserves kind of what he gets, but despite the fact he deserves it, I felt very bad for him, even though I was like, what he gets, he's just such a shit. Like, this is great, this is great for him. But I felt a lot of empathy for him, even though I knew he had it coming.
Yeah, no, it's a complex characterization, which I really appreciated. Even as the rest of it sort of becomes an almost video game mentality, like the splatter and the things that Blomkamp would just do throughout his career, where he just ups the energy of an action sequence, and he's really good at it. I don't want to take anything away from him. He does this kinetic thing with the camera where we're sort of tricked into thinking it's found footage or at least some sort of documentary, but then it's just handheld, it's combat footage, but that works too.
It's definitely very effective. It gives it a feeling of factuality that definitely less subjective. Yeah.
Yeah, and the photorealism of the effects is really impressive.
Effects were great. Watching a little bit of making of after, you see all these people obviously with all the little, their little suits on with all the dots all over, and then you're watching the film, and it's just, pretty seamless for the time, 2009, I would say.
Oh yeah, no, it's very convincing, especially within. I mean, I know now that there's an algorithmic trick to it, and that mocap and CG can work in concert with a moving camera, of course, right? Like that was happening 2 years ago in Cloverfield, but the handheld motion and the way those cameras move so quickly really tricks the eye. You believe this stuff is happening in a way that most other movies, especially in this window in 2009, when like CG was everywhere, the Marvel movies had just started, you could believe that there were Hulks and Iron Men and all that other stuff. But there is this weird tactility to this film specifically that just feels messy. And maybe it is because also that you're watching a cast of unknowns, and some part of your brain is like, well, this could have been shot the way it looked. Like they could have done this all on set. And then someone explodes into a million pieces. Like, oh no, that was just cool. Like that's something somebody thought they could pull off, and they did.
I mean, it's interesting you say that too, because I remember usually watch it about once a year. And maybe sometimes a bit more. And I was watching it maybe a year or so ago, and the scene where they're escaping from the weapons, the research center,
Mm-hmm.
when he goes in to get Christopher Johnson, I believe, and they're escaping out, and they blow up a wall to go into the parking. Well, watching it, it's just such an action-packed, the whole like escape from whatever that scientific like research center and weapons lab, whatever. It's like it's pretty intense. But what actually don't when you kind of watch it more, we obviously with your filmmaker eye or more critical eyes, when they blow up that wall, I forget what they do, but they throw something, but then you just see actually just a bunch of dust and some rocks go like that, like just thrown off the camera.
Yeah.
You don't actually see the wall explode, but that's fine. That suggestion, which was probably just I don't know, maybe they had no money or left, or but it was it looked like a very inexpensive, but very effective way to go. That wall just exploded, and now we're out in the parking lot. But if you actually like look at it, like, oh, they actually just kind of threw something, and all of a sudden you just see like a bunch of smoke and some rocks move across the screen, and then they're out running. Very, very simple and economical storytelling, and very effective.
Yeah, I realized I didn't actually check to see how much that was made for in the first place. The budget was 30 million, which at the time was a
Huge.
lot for a small movie, but nothing for a film this complicated.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge budget actually. I didn't realize it was so big. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I wonder if that includes all the development on the Halo stuff. It probably does somehow.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
Pre-production and CG research.
Actual production budget's like 500 grand.
I would assume. Yeah, exactly. It's a bunch of hats.
Yeah.
Blue bodysuits and hats. It's the classic thing, right? Like if you have a vision and you are determined to realize it, and you're halfway talented, you can make $10 look like 1,000.
Yeah.
And then especially once you have the buy-in of the audience. And did you see it in the theater the first time? Were you able to?
The circumstances, I didn't know anything about it. And I was just, I live in France, I live in Paris, and I was like, I don't know, I was out somewhere. I think it was, I can't even remember the neighborhood. It was 2009. And I saw a bus beside the bus came by, and there was, the big long panel, sort of rectangular panel shape, with which was a kind of the iconic imagery for the film, which is, the spaceship and then like two helicopters, side sort of, like, what do you call it? Accompanying the spaceship off in the sky, and you see obviously the Johannesburg spread out below them, like big urban sprawl. I remember just looking at it and it said District 9, and there was no log line or anything, or not that I saw. And I went, I gotta go see this movie. And so I went the next day and I went and saw it. I didn't read it. I don't read about films before going to see them. I don't like reading reviews. I feel, I just feel like that just ruins things. If somebody that gives it a negative review, it's like, it's just somebody's opinion about something, right? So it's like, it's not like scientific facts. So I just don't even bother reading about it. I might read like what's it about? Who's in it? Who directed it? That's it, So yeah, I went in there and I was like, yeah, saw it in the cinema. And I came out there and I was like, what the fuck did I just see?
Yeah. My experience of it was a preview screening like the Wednesday night before it opened, maybe a couple of weeks before it opened, packed with people who, I don't know where, maybe Silver Snail, some comic book store or something, but they had got their tickets from a contest that was right on top of the Comic-Con release, because it premiered in Comic-Con 3 weeks before it opened in theaters in North America, and every single person was stoked. They knew about I only found out about the Halo thing because the people in front of me were talking about it.
I didn't even know that. You just told me. I'm sorry, I'm very ignorant. I just love the film. I have not researched how it was made or anything. I didn't even know that was that. That's super interesting though.
It's honestly the best way to interact with a piece of art is to, I tried it the same way when I was a critic. I just would avoid, like if it was an adaptation, I wouldn't read the book before just because I wanted to see if the movie worked on its own. And the crowd for this could not have been more energized, and they went out on such a high when it was over, even though the ending is actually bittersweet and ambiguous and quiet, right?
I want the sequel.
I know.
They set it up for a sequel, and I have researched, like, are they ever going to do a sequel? And there's always little like red herrings, like, oh, maybe a sequel's in the works, but nothing ever comes of it. And I'm like, this is such a great film. I'm sure. I mean, it's just such a, just I get the same people, obviously the same writers, the same director, and like,
Yeah, well, Blomkamp says that there's going to be the most recent one here, according to Wikipedia, which is not always reliable, but he's been talking about making District 10 for 15 years. In 2021, on Twitter, he revealed that development was moving forward and that Copley and Terry Tatchell were going to co-write it. And then in August, he said it was still in discussions. And when Gran Turismo was finished, they'd probably do it. And then in 2023, he was very vague about whether he wants to do it or not. So
oh wow, okay,
something went south,
That's
I guess.
What I mean, like they're giving a lot of like tidbits, like breadcrumbs, but nothing is concrete. There's no dates have been set for filming or anything.
Yeah, and I don't think you could do it. I don't think there's a satisfying sequel to be made, because it would either just be about,
he's got to come back. It's 3 years later.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
Like, back with an army, or is he just going to come back to? Is he going to come back? Because he said he's going to, like, come back for Vicus and change him back. But like, I mean, he's got other shit to deal with. He's got got to save his people. He's got his son. He's got stuff to do. So
yeah. So either you pick it up now, and I mean, the beauty of it is with CG that the transformed Vicus would look exactly the same. So you could pick it up 3 years later, but it's been 15 years. And I think on some level, Blomkamp's own ambitions and the movies he's made since are so big that he could only think of it as a giant conflict, that it's the war. It's the alien force comes back and fights the South African force. And I don't know how interesting that is, right? Because especially with Vicus just being an inexpressive character as a prawn, like he can't speak in Copley's voice. He can't do much more than gesture. I would love to watch an entire film about Vickers slowly reverting to human and trying to lead some sort of resistance or rebellion. But I don't think that's where Blomkamp's sympathies lie anymore. So I don't know. I don't know how you do it with the pieces you have.
But I can't prescribe what his creativity is going to take him. I mean, he's definitely, his films are extremely creative and take you down, like, for me anyway, take me down paths and roads that I find very unstereotypical. So, thinking that, oh, it's got to be about something like an alien invasion, I think we're not inside his creative brain. So I'm sure he's going to be something a bit more interesting than that. But also, what if it has been 15 years later? Maybe Christopher Johnson hasn't come back after 15 years. So what's happening with the prawns 15 years later? What's Vickers doing in Prawnland? Maybe he's even died. I don't know. Maybe something's happened and maybe he's had children. I don't know. I mean, there's so many things going to happen. So maybe the humans figure out a way to transform him back.
Well, that's interesting. I could see him being. I mean, what I want to see is him being a liaison. Like, he is the one person on the planet who's had the experience of both.
Yeah.
So does that make him, in the allegory, is he Mandela or is he damn it.
He's not Mandela.
No, he's not. No, I can't remember who the other activist was who was there was a mixed race activist in South Africa who wrote about it at length, and now I've forgotten it completely. But the idea that there is more political capital to be burned, like there is more of an allegory here, that's what I was really hoping for in any sequel, in any project. And I wonder. I mean, Blomkamp's about to make a new version of Starship Troopers, which apparently will be more faithful to the film. So I don't know. I don't know if he's the guy I want to do this now.
And yeah, you're right. Maybe, sometimes, like, when you've done it and you've told a story, or I've had this in photography, there's certain themes and styles and elements I was working with maybe 15 years ago. And then people are like, oh, this series, why don't, and they'll be like, what, I really like this series you did. Like, why don't you go back to that? I go, well, I did it. I explored that. I'm not really interested in moving backwards. It's not really it's not something that interests me now. It's not a part of my creative evolution at this moment. And it's nothing against it. It's definitely a seminal part of it. So yeah, that might be that too, that he has nothing more to say about it. That could be it too. But also, like, what if you approaches it from, like, now maybe the humans wanting to escape Earth because of climate changes, lack of resources, desecration of the planet, destruction, annihilation, all this stuff, human caused, climate change. So maybe the aliens are in a position of power because they have the technology to live in space, right? So, so it'd be maybe like how does the dynamic change there? That could be something also to approach.
Yeah, he played with that in Elysium, right?
He can have all these ideas for free, no problem, So.
Hey, it's Norm interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my newsletter about physical media, culture, and the odd streaming project. Last week, I wrote about Criterion's new editions of Bruce Robinson's Withnail and I and How to Get Ahead in Advertising, Arrow's 4K releases of The Andromeda Strain, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X, and Shout Studios' 4K restoration of Scent of a Woman. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io or find a link at the Semcast Blue Sky account. You like reading about movies? I like writing about them. Come check it out. I wonder, too, if it's ever possible to escape people asking about the sequel, right?
I must hate it. Probably hates it. Oh, yes.
Yeah, but your first film gets nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. It becomes this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably a cursed, blessed sort of element. It's, I mean, like, think of George R. Martin. Like, people harassing him to have like another installment of Game of Thrones. Like, this whole world he's created. Like, you don't write that off in like 6 weeks. You got probably, my guess, probably years and years of writing, right? So. And then, after I'm sure you run out of steam after so many episodes or like when you're creating this world, I'm just, God, I don't want to talk about Jaime Lannister again.
I wonder too, like, somebody ended it for him. They came up with an ending to the show, which admittedly very few people seem to like, but at least there was an ending. And maybe once that's there, he doesn't have the motivation anymore.
I can totally understand. It's done, a lot ran out of steam or whatever. Maybe he not ran out of steam. He's just interested in other projects.
Yeah, he had this great interview maybe a month or two ago, where somebody was asking him about the pushback, and like every time he does something, anything else that isn't writing a Game of Thrones book, people get mad at him. And he said, it's like, I own a theater. I don't run the projector. I can do more than one thing. Leave me alone. And I kind of love that. It's preposterous to assume that a creator will do the thing you want them to do on your schedule, right? Like it's a gift every time, which I guess would be the situation with District 10 if and when it ever happens. But I kind of wonder if maybe he has moved past it, and I wouldn't blame him for not wanting to return to something 15 years old.
Well, I'll do it. Yeah.
Where would you take it? What would you do?
No.
You spat up a couple of ideas just now. Which one?
Anything
resonating?
I'm not from South Africa, so I don't know if I'd be able to tackle that story that with all the baggage and history and experience that comes with that. I would not be the appropriate person to tell it. I would definitely need to turn it into something that from a world where I come from, right? So that I could make it believable and give it a certain amount of authenticity, and a certain amount of respect to it, right? So, I would find it even probably disrespectful me trying to tell a story about South Africa and migrants and stuff when I have no idea, what people go through and what entails all that. So, I'd probably make it, maybe aliens come back, but maybe planet Earth wants to go to space, how the tables have turned, the shift of power the balance of power has shifted. Probably like Canadian spoof, not like spin on it. A lot more. I probably put a lot more rednecks in it. A lot of trailer park parties. Probably a lot more drinking as well. So yeah.
It's funny. I mean, there is nothing that says District 10 has to be in South Africa.
Yeah.
It could be Alberta. It could be, hell, it could be in France. France already has districts.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Maybe that's the way in. French aliens.
Oh God, no, we're not making that movie. No, let's cut this right now. Sorry, guys. Forget that. I'm not doing it.
The studio's got to spend their money on something. I would actually watch that.
French District 10. Oh my God, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Il y a pas de baguette.
Yeah. Prawn in French.
Yeah. Les prawns enfoncés.
Yeah. There's no rule that says Christopher has to bring the ship back to the same place. And then actually you could have Vickers show up. God help me. I think I can see a way for this to work.
Yeah?
Yeah. Kick it around. See what you do. But in terms of the film that you have made, in terms of Kryptic.
Nice segue there. Wow. Okay.
This is what I do. But Kryptic is also about someone who is on a path she didn't choose for herself necessarily, and confronting what that makes of her, right?
She's not as unlikable as Vickers.
I don't think so.
But she's definitely a bit of a wallflower. She's definitely awkward, socially awkward person. She's not the popular girl in school, and yeah, her, there's, this idea of kind of being transformed through exposure to something, obviously in District 9, it's that weird sort of biological liquid that they use for technology that, that changes DNA. Hers is something a bit more sort of sinister and supernatural. But there's this other parallel, which is more, say superficial parallel, like Christopher Johnson's going to take 3 years to come back. Barb Valentine went missing 3 years ago. I did do this on purpose. I just noticed these things after, and his hands is what first starts transforming Vickers. Well, there's a certain scene where you see some sort of transformation with hands in my film, so I have to be careful about not giving stuff away. and hers is exposure to mucus and a monster. His is biological stuff, and also the hand. Is that the mucus in 3 years? I'm sure there's other parallels. I'll remember after. But yes, those are the superficial ones anyway.
Well, there's a runner about bodily autonomy specifically, through what Barb is experiencing and how control and the loss of control, and it kind of could be perceived as a kind of liberation, but it's terrifying, right? Like depending on where you are.
Yep. Liberation, freedom, liberty. It's also it's terrifying because it's so open ended. There's it's the unknown is much scarier than the known. Obviously, I just said the most bland sentence in the world.
No, it's valid. And the other thing too is that where District 9 takes place well, they shot it in Soweto and they made the most of the locations, and a lot of it is just this sort of flattened space where construction has already collapsed and everything is in pieces, but it's still recognizably man-made. Most of Kryptic is set outdoors or in small manicured spaces, like a really well put together house to reflect a certain type of stability that's disrupted on the inside and the outside by the presence of a thing that no one can explain.
Yeah, 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 definitely. And the horror of obviously has changed, but also like embracing it, or like from finding the positive, or the redemption, through redemption or breaking cycles or change and whatnot, which I think you can probably apply to both those films as well. Something terrible's happened, but what you have to. There's also within this sort of terrible framework, there are catalysts for positivity.
Yeah, yeah, and how can I put this without spoiling anything? I think the ending, like the film itself, is very ambivalent towards the nature of or not
ambivalent, ambiguous.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, the ending is ambiguous, but I think the film itself is ambivalent towards whether the transformation is positive or negative, which is similar to District 9, right? They're both really allowing us to figure out how we're supposed to feel. There's no guidepost. We're not being pushed in any one direction.
Yeah, we definitely were not. Paul, the writer, and I were on the same page that we were not interested in concretely saying, like, having a sort of any sort of moral or I don't know, like, what's the word, like expounding any sort of message or morality or any sort. We're not interested in spoon feeding anybody anything. That actually, I would say, my takes for sure, and I probably Paul would agree with me, is that that life is actually about ambiguity, that nothing is actually black or white. It's pretty, nothing is clear. We love to set these, this is white this way, this is this way, this is this box, and this fits right in here, and we're going to trim the corners of everything to make sure it fits in there. But that's really just a construct of a way of thinking of knowledge that we like to use and we employ as human beings. But that's as like manipulating something to fit what we want. That's actually how things are in itself.
Yeah. Well, and also the fact that so much of Chloe Perry's performance is silent and observant, right? Like she is watching the world around her as much as we're watching her.
She's just trying to get by. Paul actually, him and I were working on it when he was writing it, and we kind of likened it to, like, you ever wake up from like a crazy night out and you're hungover and you don't remember, you have to like piece everything together, and so you listen to your friends talk and they kind of like, oh yeah, you remember you did this, but you want to pretend like you do, like, oh yeah, and then you have to like get the information out of them without admitting that you don't remember. That's how we kind of likened it, like, just a wild night out, we got completely wasted, and you can't remember and you blacked out, and you need to basically like try to find out, sleuth, like to find out, fit the pieces of what actually happened, just reconstruct your night.
Right. And in this case, it's years, potentially.
Yeah, potentially years. Yeah. Our whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's fun to watch people. How can I put this? Yeah. God, there's so much I shouldn't talk about.
We could go back because Chloe, she doesn't have a lot of lines, but that's what, when we cast her, I mean, when the casting director did, send us a lovely, lovely, like, range of great actors. And Paul and I looked at Chloe immediately, like, she jumped out of the water immediately. She has this great face. Because she's a very beautiful woman, but she's not classical pretty. She's not the prom homecoming queen. She's very unique and distinguished sort of beauty to her that was quite nice, because Kay's a bit of a wallflower, is a bit awkward, so you don't want somebody that looks like prom queen, because that's just not believable. And her eyes are just so expressive. She's just has such a great expressive face that had such a wide range of. I mean, I always felt like her bewildered state was always kind of conveyed confusion, and she also had like some, she has irony and humor and all these things she can convey just from her looks, which is really essential because there's not a lot of lines.
But she's got this physical poise too, right? Like there's a steeliness to her that peeks through, right? Like it's a hidden spine. I couldn't get a beat on it for the first half of the picture, which was great because it's just pulling me further in. But watching her move and figure things out, especially over the course of the film, is like it's its own kind of fascination. And that's something, weirdly enough, that District 9 doesn't have, because it moves so quickly and so frantically that we're not allowed to spend time with people in contemplation. Like Vickis is panicked for basically the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just which is exciting in itself. This is much more contemplative and a lot more ambiguity also, in the sense like people ask about the K Barb situation and how who is who and why is what, and honestly, like I've made some sort of choices when I was directing in my mind, but I never actually told the actors, unless they had like specific questions. I would never be like, this is actually what's happening, unless they really felt they needed it to get their head around, or to help make whatever they're going through, for their creation of their character, to bring them to where they need to go. But for me, this keeping it, ambiguity. And I also, he said something about her steely, like a bit of a steely character, like is for me, I always ask myself the question, like, all these things happening to her, is it a curse, or is it like a lucky chance in your life to start again? Like, this happened to me and I have amnesia. Like, that can be bad, or actually, like, did that you orchestrate that? Is that something that maybe you desired secretly, and now you've got your wish, and now you get to like go out and start anew and become whoever you wanted to be, your best idea of yourself, because nobody knows who the fuck you are,
Yeah, I mean, she's confused, but she's not a victim. I think like that seems to be the
she's definitely subject to the vagaries of all these things happening to her, but she's works her way through it. Yeah,
and even when she's at her most vulnerable, she still has the ability to set her own path.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
Yeah, she doesn't. Things happen to her, but she's not just passively letting them happen to her. Things happen, but they're not, like I said, not everything's just black and white. Even with her relationship with her husband, who's Jeff Gladstone, who I think portrays Morgan amazingly. I really like the character Morgan. He's also a bit of a douchebag. We want to say that, but I also have a lot of empathy and pity for him. I think almost maybe as a director, you're supposed to never dislike any of your actors, even the worst ones, because you got to have a lot of empathy for them. But whatever's happening with the relationship, I mean, it's not healthy, their relationship, but I always imagine too, like, what's he going through? His wife, like, leaves for like 3 years, no explanation. Like, does she do this all the time? Is she like leaving him at wit's end because she just goes off and does whatever she wants, and like, and always escaping him? And they marry, they're supposed to be in love, they're supposed to have this great life, and she's never like there and never settling. What's going through his head? And I'm not justifying his behaviors, but he's probably not had an easy time with her either.
And you also cast Jason DeLine, who's a friend of the show. He did the show years and years ago, and has evolved from this sort of charming gentleman actor to somebody who can play all sorts of layers, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was great as Caleb, because Caleb also is a questionable character, but probably but I never thought of Caleb either as bad person. I just thought he's hedonist. He's a profiter. He's going to take advantage of it. He's a manipulator, but he's looking out for number one. Number one is him.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting the way he sees opportunities where other people would see vulnerability.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, if you were to do District 10, it would be fun to watch him get blown up by a big gun.
Would be like District 10, the Kourtneys.
Yeah, the small, precise revenge arc, revenge tour.
Yeah, just be like from the point of view of one person, and like one be this grandiose, thousands of people dealing with thousands and thousands of like mass, aliens or mass people. It'd be, what's the small story arc of like one person, who's, in their interaction with perhaps one, or with the alien presence at some point.
Yeah, see, that's the stuff I love. The things that happen. I mean, District 9 in a weird way is that sort of thing as well, because you are following one character through a world that you as an audience member have never encountered before, and you get to experience every level of it. But the science fiction I love the most, I think, is the stuff like Well, Cloverfield, right, again comes up. It's the sense that you have just stumbled onto this thing that's going on. It's not even sci-fi. It's not just a monster movie, but or 28 Days Later, where we have a handful of people in the middle of this gargantuan event, and they're our only point of view. And it's the same with Kryptic, right? I mean, we really are just with her the whole time, whatever's going on.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's actually there's not one scene in the film where it's not basically from her point of view, or she is in every scene basically.
Oh, she has to be, right? Like, there's no way to.
Yes, it's just there's no outside like elements coming in that are going to affect, and everything is just like what's happening to her, very very like upfront in your face. This is her story.
Yeah, I mean, it's
her reality does not matter. And we're supposed to be as confused as she is. That's why that's why it's an ambiguous film, and that's why it's also not a lot of spoon feeding, because we want you to feel what she's feeling. It is confusing, and she doesn't know what the hell happened to her. So why would we give that to your information as the audience? It's more interesting if maybe trying to discover along with her what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a film that rewards you going in cold and having no expectations and just letting the movie show you what it wants to show you.
Definitely.
I love that stuff. I usually wrap with the question of what it is that you've borrowed or taken or internalized from District 9, but
yeah, I kind of went into that too early, didn't I?
No. It's sometimes it does come out in the body of the conversation, but I guess in that case, my next question would be, so where do you go from here? Like, what's your next project?
I'll answer your first question too, because I did talk about the superficial things, or let's say the visual obvious links and storytelling links. But also District 9 is, it's touching, it's heartwarming, it's got a lot of action, got a lot of crazy shit happening, it's mysterious, and it's funny sometimes too, because it's hilarious, when he comes in and he's like, baby, I think I shit my pants, So I like all those elements in a film. Those are like when it kind of touches on all these little emotional strings. And it kind of, it's not just a thriller. It's not just sci-fi. It's, it has humanitarian sort of elements. And so that's probably something I tried to also maybe incorporate into Kryptic. It's not just a cryptid film. It's not a monster movie. It's not a horror movie. It's just hopefully a lot, hopefully you find there's some humor. Hopefully you find there's some touching things. Hopefully there's some really disturbing things happening. Like I do like that thing when they have like a sort of a rich emotional life into it. And next, working on with a writer on a feature film about a bad artist whose kind of career is on the rocks, and so she starts killing her perceived nemesis and rivals, making bad video art of it, and then gets famous for it.
That could never happen.
No, so that's going to be probably in France, or maybe in Paris, but I would love to come back to Canada and film again as well. I mean, I really enjoy filming in Canada. Yeah,
there is something about this pitch that feels distinctly French. Although at this point, it's just you can tell that story pretty much anywhere with an art center. There's an aristocracy element to a French location that would play for that, right? Like, you could have an outsider coming in and introduce class into it in a way that maybe wouldn't happen in New York or London.
Not necessarily class, because they killed all the aristocrats of French with the Revolution. So England, maybe it's a more class element. Definitely class in terms of, there's always a certain amount of elitism and snobism associated with art world and whatnot. So definitely can play with that.
Yeah. No, I look forward to it.
Yeah. I hope so. Crazy.
My thanks to Kourtney Roy, whose unsettling first feature, Kryptic, is now playing in Toronto at the Imagine Carlton Cinemas and available on digital and on demand in the US and Canada. Thanks also to Laura Steen. She knows what she did. You can find Kourtney on Instagram at Kourtney Roy, all one word, and you can find District 9 on 4K Blu-ray and DVD from Sony Pictures Home Entertainment and streaming on Prime Video, Crave, and AMC Plus in Canada. It's also available to rent or buy on various VOD services across North America. You can find me on Blue Sky at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/Semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 41 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or this show in general, please say so. leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps. It truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, get all the boosters. I'll see you next week.